In this video, I will set tabs using the ruler and using the tabs dialog box. So first, I will just say make sure your ruler is on. So mine is on. At the far left hand side, you will see an indicator. That indicator changes as you click the button. So right now, I'm looking at a first line indent, then a hanging indent, now a left tab, which looks like an L. An upside down T is a center tab setting. A backwards L is a right tab setting. And an upside down T with a decimal point is a decimal tab setting. So I'm just going to set this so that we have the L. So I'm going to set that at the 1.5 inch mark. And I'm also going to set it at the 4 inch mark. So I've set my tabs by just clicking right below the number on the ruler. So if you're up above the number, it's not going to work. If you're down too low, it's not going to work. If you put the tab setting in the wrong place, you can drag it using your mouse, or you can also just drag it down and then click and put it where you want it to go. So once you've set the tabs, you have to hit your tab key to get to that point, because otherwise nothing happens. You're just typing. Before you actually put in tabs, by default you would move a 1/2 inch at a time. So I'm going to clear the tabs off and I'll set them again. So you'll see as I tap, my cursor moves a 1/2 inch at a time. If I turn my show hide button on, you're going to see an arrow every time I've pressed the tab key. So I'm going to go back up there, put my left tab at the 1.5 and the 4 inch mark. When I hit the tab key, I go to the 1.5 inch mark because the tab setting's set. Now I'm going to type my name. You'll see that it is lined up with the left tab setting, so it's left aligned. I'm going to tab again, and it went to the 4 inch mark. I typed my name, and you'll see again it's left aligned. If I tab again after this, it's going to take me to the next 1/2 inch mark, and it'll continue to do that. So what a tab setting does is it just sets the tab from the margin or the previous tab setting to this point that you've clicked or you've set. So I'm just going to backspace over those. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to go in and take these tab settings off. So I'm just dragging them down off the ruler. So I'm going to change my tab setting so it's a center tab setting this time. So it looks like an upside down T at the 1.5 inch mark and at the 4 inch mark. I'm going to tab, type my name again, and this time you'll notice it's centered below the tab setting. And again, I will do it at the 4 inch mark, and you'll see it's centered below the tab setting. I'm going to clear the tabs again. And this time I'm going to use a right tab setting again at the 1.5 inch mark and the 4 inch mark. So as I tab and I type my name, you'll see it's lined up at the right side of the tab setting. I have to spell my name right. Now I will set a decimal tab setting. I'm going to clear these tabs. I'm going to set a decimal tab setting at the 2 inch mark and at the 4 inch mark. So I'm just doing this a little bit different than I did before. When I tab and I type in a number, so I'm going to type in 100.00, and I'm going to go over to the next column and do the same thing. So to the 4 inch mark and type in 100.00. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to tab across. This time I'm going to type in 1,000, 1,1000.00, and I'm going to do the same thing over here, 1,00.00, and then I'll do 10,000, 10,000, 00. So you'll see the whole purpose of this is to line up the decimal points. So when you're using a right tab setting, it pretty much will do the same thing, except as soon as your decimal points are off, it will not work. So watch what happens. I'm going to make this be 5,000 decimal 001, and I'm going to go over here and do the same thing. 5,000 decimal 001. So I'm going to select this data, and I'm going to change the tab setting for the decimal tab to a right tab for the 2-inch mark. So I'm going to right click, go to paragraph, and from there choose tabs. So the 2-inch mark, I'm going to change that from decimal to right, just so you can see what happens. So you'll notice here I'm good until I get down to this last number and it's not aligned. Whereas when I've used the decimal tab setting, it is aligned. And I'm going to do one last one for the bar setting. So I'm going to remove these tab settings. I'm going to choose a bar setting, and I'm going to put that at the 4-inch mark, and I will just set a left tab setting at the 1-inch mark, or at the 2-inch mark. So I'm going to tab, type my name, tab again, and you'll notice it's going to the 3-inch mark, tab again to the 3.5. So all the tab setting at the 4-inch mark does is put a line in there. That's the whole purpose of it, is just to put a line in your text. So you'll notice the default tab settings really aren't set for that the way they were with the other settings. Now, the other way to set your tabs is through the tabs dialog box that I just had up a few seconds ago. So I'm going to start a new blank document. And in the new blank document, I'm going to actually start with the assignment that you're doing for Word Assignment 2. In that assignment, I asked you to set center tabs at odd numbers. So I'm going to use the tab settings for this because I can't really tell where that is on the ruler. So I'm going to right click and go into paragraph, and from there tabs. I asked you to set a tab setting at the 1.81-inch mark, and then I wanted that to be a center tab setting, and then set. Then I also asked for a 3.31-inch, so it's center. I just have to click set, and then also 4.88. And then set. Now I'm going to click OK. I'm going to type my title like I've asked you guys, but before I do that, I'm going to make sure my spacing is set at single. So 0, single for my spacing. I've asked you to type the title Annual District Revenues. That's centered. And then I'll press enter. Now I want a blank line between this and the next line, so I have to press enter again. I'm going to left align, and my tabs are set already, so I'm going to tab. I'll type in my first heading, which is 1988. Tab again. Type in my next heading, 1989. Tab. Type in my next heading, 1990. Now again, I'm going to press enter twice. Now I am on line 5. So if you want to see what line number you're on the status bar, you can right click, and from there you can click on line number, and it will show up down in your status bar as well. So you'll see it's down here. Now I am going to type in District A, tab, and at this point I've asked you to change the tab settings. So I've asked you to change them so that they're decimal tab settings at 2, 3.5, and 5. So I can either go up here and clear these center tabs off by just dragging them off, or I can go into the paragraph dialog box, open my tabs dialog box, hit clear all to get rid of the tab settings, and then set the new ones. So the new ones are 2-inch decimal tab set, a 3.5-inch decimal tab set, and then a 5-inch decimal tab and set. And I'm going to click OK, and then I would type in the rest of my numbers. So this is 150,000, 151,000, 90,000. Now I'm going to the next line. I'm going to type in District B. I'm going to type in my numbers for that. So I have 209,000, then 215,000, and then 218,000. So you'll see my tab settings are set so that my decimals are all lined up. Now, later on in the exercise, I will ask you to select from District A down to District E, which I have only typed to District B, so we'll practice with this. And I've asked you to drag using your mouse, and it's just so that you get used to using your mouse settings to move your tab settings around. Because once you're in the office, there's not going to be somebody saying, set this exactly this way. You will have to make those decisions. So I'm going to move this over to the 2.5-inch mark. Then I'll move this one to the 4.5-inch mark, and this one to the 5.5-inch mark. So once I've done that, I need to then move my headings so that they're lined up. So what I will do is I'll just click on the heading line. So I'll click on line 3, the line with the headings, and then I will drag each tab setting so that it looks like it's centered above the column of numbers. So I'm just dragging so the dotted line looks like it's in the center of my numbers. And I'm doing that for each heading. And I'm just doing it as a visual. And don't worry if you move down off your ruler, just move back up. Don't let go of your mouse. And if you do let go of your mouse, this is what's going to happen. And you just have to click and put your tab setting wherever you want it. And in this case, I clicked, it ended up being a left tab, and I actually want a center tab. So I go into Paragraph, Tabs, and then I can change that setting to a center tab, and then Set and OK. And then I can just finish moving it about the way I want it to be. So that looks centered to me. There's one more tab setting I'd like to talk about, and that is a leader. And what a leader does is it adds either a dotted line, a dashed line, or a solid line between your previous tab stop and this tab stop. So this is how you will see people create forms sometimes. So for example, I'm going to set a left tab stop at the 1-inch mark, and then I'm also going to set it at the 5-inch mark. I'm going to tab to the 1-inch mark, type my name, and then tab to the 5-inch mark. And I'd actually like to have seen a line between where my name is and the 5-inch mark. So I'm going to right click, go to Paragraph, and then Tabs, and I'm going to click the 5-inch setting and change my leader to 2. I'm going to hit Set and click OK, and you'll see now I have a dotted line. So if I wanted the dashed line instead, I would go into Paragraph, into my Tabs dialog box, make sure I'm on the 5-inch tab setting, change my leader from 2 to 3, and then click OK. I've got a dashed line. And again, same thing for a solid line. So I'd go into the tab settings and make sure I'm on the right tab setting. So I want the 5-inch one. Click leader 4, hit Set, hit OK. And now I have a solid line. So even if I don't type anything at the 1-inch mark, from the 1-inch to the 5-inch mark, I now have a solid line. So that's an easy way to create lines within your document.